The sharp knock on the front door came just as the quiet morning sun filled the small neighborhood with light, and within a few heartbeats, the peaceful life of a widowed single father changed forever. Standing on the doorstep was the neighbor's 26-year-old daughter, her face pale from sleepless nights, her hands trembling with fear, and tears threatening to fall from exhausted eyes. She had come with only one desperate request. She needed a husband, not because she dreamed of a wedding, but because her life had reached a place where hope seemed impossible. The strange request left the single father frozen in disbelief, unaware that accepting the burden of another person's pain would soon uncover a truth that would heal two broken families instead of one. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that even the smallest act of compassion can change someone's life forever, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise so more inspiring stories can reach people who need them most. The single father was named Rowan Mercer, a quiet 38-year-old carpenter who had spent the last 6 years raising his young daughter, Hazel, after losing his wife to a sudden illness. Every sunrise began the same way. He prepared breakfast, braided Hazel's hair with clumsy but loving hands, walked her to school, and then worked long hours repairing furniture in his small workshop behind the house. Life had become a routine built from responsibility instead of dreams. His neighbors admired his honesty and kindness, but they also noticed the loneliness he tried so hard to hide behind a gentle smile. Across the narrow street lived the Ellsworth family. Their daughter, Maris, had always been respectful and hard-working, caring for her aging grandfather while balancing two jobs. Although they greeted each other often, Rowan and Maris had never shared more than friendly conversations. That morning, however, everything felt different. Maris carried the weight of someone who had spent months fighting invisible battles. Her grandfather had become seriously ill, and a complicated legal matter involving inherited property threatened to leave them both without a home. Unscrupulous relatives were using every legal trick they could find, believing they could force the elderly man into signing away everything he owned. Maris had discovered one legal solution that could temporarily protect her grandfather's rights, but it required her to have immediate family support through marriage before an important court deadline. She had nowhere else to turn. Every friend had disappeared when the situation became difficult, and every relative cared more about money than compassion. Rowan represented the only person she trusted enough to ask for help. The request haunted Rowan throughout the day. He looked at Hazel playing happily in the yard, remembering the promises he had made to his late wife about protecting their daughter with honesty and integrity. Agreeing to a marriage built on necessity felt impossible, yet refusing meant watching innocent people lose everything they had left. The conflict stretched across his heart like a storm cloud. He spent the evening repairing an old rocking chair, hoping the familiar rhythm of sanding and polishing would somehow provide an answer. Instead, each scrape of the sandpaper reminded him that broken things sometimes required uncomfortable choices before they could become beautiful again. Days passed as Rowan quietly learned more about Maris's situation. He visited her grandfather under the excuse of delivering repaired furniture and witnessed a proud old man struggling to remain strong despite illness and betrayal. He noticed faded family photographs carefully arranged on the walls, reminders of happier years now overshadowed by greed. Most importantly, he saw the way Maris sacrificed every ounce of her strength without asking for recognition. She worked through exhaustion, smiled through heartbreak, and still found time to bring warm meals to elderly neighbors who had even less than she did. Rowan realized her request had never been about romance. It had been the final act of courage from someone refusing to abandon the last member of her family. After many sleepless nights, Rowan made his decision. He chose kindness over comfort. The simple courthouse ceremony attracted little attention, with only Hazel, Maris's grandfather, and two close witnesses present. There were no grand decorations, expensive flowers, or joyful celebrations. Yet something remarkable happened during that quiet afternoon. Hazel reached for Maris's hand without hesitation, and the older man smiled with genuine peace for the first time in months. It was not a fairy tale wedding. It was four lonely hearts choosing to protect one another from a world that had often been unfair. The weeks that followed were filled with awkward adjustments. Rowan and Maris respected each other's boundaries while learning how to share responsibilities under the same roof. They focused on caring for Hazel and supporting the grandfather through his medical treatments. Slowly, the empty house that once echoed with silence began to fill with ordinary moments that felt extraordinary. Shared breakfasts, laughter over burned pancakes, school projects spread across the dining table, and quiet evenings on the porch created a family neither of them had expected. Healing arrived not through dramatic declarations but through countless acts of everyday kindness. The courtroom hearing finally arrived on a bright afternoon. The relatives entered confidently, believing they had already won. However, the evidence presented by Rowan, combined with legal documents carefully prepared over several weeks, exposed every dishonest attempt to manipulate the elderly man. The judge ruled completely in favor of Maris's grandfather, protecting both his home and his dignity. As the family walked outside into the warm daylight, the burden they had carried for so long finally lifted. The victory had not come through wealth or influence. It had come because one ordinary man chose compassion when walking away would have been easier. Months later, Rowan realized something had quietly changed inside him. The house no longer felt empty when he returned from work. Hazel laughed more than she had since losing her mother. Maris smiled without forcing it. Her grandfather spent peaceful afternoons teaching Hazel how to grow flowers in the garden, filling the yard with bright colors that reflected the hope blooming inside every member of the family. What had begun as an act of necessity slowly transformed into genuine love built on trust, patience, sacrifice, and mutual respect. None of them had planned this ending, yet it became more meaningful than anything they could have imagined. If this story touched your heart, please support the video by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Kindness Paradise. Your support encourages more uplifting stories that remind the world kindness still exists. Special request, comment below with one word that describes this story: hope, kindness, or family. We'd love to read every response. As the sun set on another peaceful day, Rowan looked across the garden where Hazel chased butterflies while Maris helped her grandfather water the flowers. He finally understood that families are not always created by perfect beginnings. Sometimes they are built by ordinary people who choose compassion during life's darkest moments. One selfless decision had rescued not only a struggling neighbor but also a lonely father and a little girl longing for happiness. In a world that often rewards selfishness, their story became quiet proof that the greatest miracles are born from simple acts of kindness, and that second chances often arrive disguised as someone's desperate knock on the front door.